It's a real-life rags-to-riches story. In just 3 years, he bought and now owns 130 homes. And tonight, he takes an average wage earner through his amazing scheme to make him a millionaire as well. Rowan Wen has this exclusive report.
There are more millionaires made from property than any other means.
I'd always thought that I needed lots of money to make money, or I needed a great idea or a great invention, when in reality, I didn't need any of that.
These days, when someone promises to make you a fortune from property, you can't help but be sceptical. But that's exactly what property expert Steve McKnight is promising to do for 10 lucky Australians.
I reckon I've been to about every possible get-rich-quick seminar. But the problem about get-rich-quick seminars is, in our heart of hearts, we know they don't work. And they don't work. Really, when it comes down to investing, it's just a matter of common sense.
He doesn't really look like a millionaire property mogul, but in just 3.5 years, Steve and business partner Dave Bradley have purchased a staggering 130 properties, which generate hundreds of thousands of dollars in profits every year.
If it makes sense to buy one property and it makes money, then it's got to make sense to buy 100 properties and they all make money. And that's what we've done.
Well, Davo, these are the latest 25 that we've just picked up.
These days, the pair enjoys the sort of financial freedom Steve says he couldn't have imagined 3.5 years ago, when he was living off his wife's salary after quitting his job as an accountant.
My hair was falling out, I had ulcers in my mouth, I was a shivering mess. I couldn't sleep at night, my wife didn't know what was happening, and I just went, oh, I've got to go to the doctor, I'm not well. And the doctor took basically one look at me and said, Steve, you need a holiday.
So what's the secret? Well, you will need start-up cash. $10,000 for initial deposits should cover it. And then the next step is to turn your back on inflated prices in the cities and head for the country.
When we bought our first house, everyone would say, you don't get capital growth in the country, and you know, you're mad to invest in that particular town and all this sort of stuff. When in reality, these people had never ever invested $1 in their lives. So they were no more authority on buying than what I was.
So Steve, this is where it all began.
This is the very first one.
Steve and Dave have some simple rules for investing. Rule 1 is that the properties have to make money from day one.
Well, we bought it for $44,000 and we put down $8,800. And when you crunch the numbers, it earned positive cash flow.
Positive cash flow simply means that the properties must pay for themselves. So the rent needs to cover loan repayments, insurance, maintenance, and still give a small profit. And while you don't find too many houses like that in the cities, the pair have found heaps of them in large regional areas.
And I'm not talking about rural hamlets here, I'm talking about major regional centres. Instead of one $500,000 house, I might be able to buy 5 $100,000 houses.
More houses means more profits from rent, and by reinvesting those profits, Steve and Dave have been able to buy even more properties.
I'm sure that we wouldn't have achieved the success we've achieved if we'd have taken out the profits as we went and splurged them on an extravagant lifestyle.
Steve also credits a lot of their success to the fact that they spend 1/3 of all cash flow on keeping tenants happy, because experience shows happy tenants are more likely to pay their rents.
I'll do things like give them movie vouchers. I'll give them a plant nursery voucher when they move in. I'll do spontaneous improvements of the property for their benefit, all to try and keep them pleasantly surprised and to understand that a tenant-landlord relationship is two ways.
Neither partner needs a conventional job anymore, and the pair are well on track to be earning $500,000 in profits every year by the middle of next year.
There's absolutely no doubt in my mind that the viewers at home can replicate the income that they're earning at the moment.
Which is why Steve wrote his book From Zero to 130 Properties in 3.5 years. He says it contains all the hints, formulas and advice anyone needs to get going.
Envisaging owning 130 properties might seem as remote as jumping to the moon, but it just takes one property at a time, and before long, it might take 5 or 10 years, but it is doable.
And to prove to Australia that he's not just another property investment shonk, Steve has selected 10 people from around the country who he says he'll coach to become property millionaires in just 12 months.
They will control $1 million worth of property, and based on the kind of yields that I'm talking about, $1 million worth of property should mean they have $100,000 worth of passive income as well, 10% return.
And before you all pick up your phones and start ringing, the 10 have already been chosen. Pete Williams is one of them.
Worst case scenario is I get back to selling shoes part-time. So that's the thing. I've got no overheads, got no commitment, so if I have a try, the worst thing is I start back and get a job.
Steve says following the formula does take effort, but he maintains with the right approach and the right attitude, anyone can do it.
I am certain that people that stick with the program will end up a success.